it's only when you kind of stop and think about it that you actually realize that, oh, you aren't really treated like, like a Hong Konger. You're kind of a third culture kid, which you don't know because you've assimilated yourself so much that the Indian culture really isn't there, because you're not the same skin color or whatever else. Then you're treated a bit more differently. So I was in an international school where we had a bunch of different cultures. But when it came to subtleties, like for example bringing Indian food to school, that quickly became a point of bullying almost. Where just because it smelt a bit more, so you almost very very quickly try to assimilate yourself and try to move away from all the things that kind of identify you as what I guess is quote unquote Indian in Hong Kong. So, which is everything from the kind of food you wore, that you ate, the things you dressed, and it was just something that was very foreign for people in Hong Kong. So you kind of realize that as you try to give those things up, then actually people accept you a bit more. Then there isn't as much conflict. Percent of the time, or 90% of the time, almost always there's an empty seat somewhere. Which, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not that bad in a crowded city like Hong Kong. But it's just something that you don't realize, because it's so subtle. It's so almost like casual that it's not in your face. Anytime I'm out, I'd say maybe like 60-70% of the time, if I'm out at a place like either at a park somewhere or just walking down the street and the cops around, they'll always stop me to check my ID card. The other parts of it would also be receiving compliments like, oh, you're not really Indian, as if that's something to be proud of, which I mean, it's something that you don't really realize, because it's not said in a very negative tone. It's almost kind of like when someone was feeling closer to you.
I think that the attitude definitely gets worse over the past 10 years or so. When I first came to Hong Kong, maybe I was in a university or in a campus environment, so people are very nice. And then people, like the local students, always try to help the mainland students to get used to the new life in Hong Kong. Or in China, the income gap is still big, so the education level is definitely different. So some people are not well educated, and some people are relatively better, but people tend to take the less well educated people, less well educated people as a whole, as a sample, or as an example of all the Chinese people. So and then they say, oh, Chinese people are not polite, Chinese people are rude. But I think people are just most of even the rural area people are still kind, but they're just not as well educated as the highly paid people, something like that. But for those the bottom people, I have to say that they don't have the life, and then they don't have the wage increase, and they cannot afford a property. So they all blame everything to China and mainland Chinese. But I think that's fundamental economy reasons of Hong Kong, the few families, the few real estate companies controlling the economy. That's they are the reason why the property prices are not bringing in Chinese people.
Have people who have earned, a lot, like maybe over 40,000 Hong Kong dollars per month, and we have those who are, living in subdivided housing, and they face the same kind of problem. They own landlords do not like to rent to ethnic minorities. Yeah. And here we see there's a flaw in the Race Discrimination Ordinance. Nationality is not a protected characteristic under the Race Discrimination Ordinance. And they can say, oh, you're actually an Indian. We don't rent to Indians. Or you are someone from Nigeria, with a Nigerian passport. We don't rent to Nigerians. So this is a major flaw because banks have used this as an excuse not to open bank accounts, decline credit cards application, and now landlords have been using this flaw as well. Before the handover of back to the Chinese government, Chinese and English were official languages, but English was more prominent. But after 1997, the education policies have changed, and we moved to what we call a mother tongue policy. So most schools are not allowed to use English to teach. So most of the schools will use Chinese to teach. So it seems like the government kind of has forgotten a group of people who do not speak Chinese as their mother tongue.
对隐形的墙吧，就是大家表面上其实都不错，就是都挺正常的。如果在平时上课啊什么，但是其实要课下之后，私下里，其实人家还是比较对你有一点隔阂。我不知道是不是因为之前的一些事情什么的，反正就是不太愿意，可能大家习惯啊，还有平时的聊天的话题啊都不一样。 思维方式也不一样，所以人家也觉得和你没什么话说，对，这样子。然后大家也不能，而且他们肯定还是比较喜欢讲广东话，讲自己的语言嘛。而且毕竟是在香港，人家哇哇哇讲广东话，交流很顺畅，然后把你带进去，你又听不懂，人家又要顾及你，那这样大家其实各种方面吧，思维方面，然后语言方面都不方便。所以我觉得这是隔阂了。
Between 1997 and 2014, right? If you don't grow up with minorities or racial minorities in your school, or as a classmate, you don't know them, you don't understand them, and so they become like outsiders and aliens.
Every aspect of yourself has been defined by the city you've grown up in, but then you still can't be called, you still can't call yourself a Hong Konger, even though I've been here for 26 years. So it's almost like, well, the number of years clearly isn't the issue. So then what is it? And I think that's something you kind of almost get used to. That it's just you accept and you just kind of live life and go on.